All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for My Hero Academia, Season 5, Episode 10.
Bakugo's fight is over. It's a smashing victory.
And now we get to have Shinso and Deku have their rematch.
And I suppose Monoma's there too.
Monoma will be a problem because not only could he just, copy Shinso's quirk, we don't know whose quirk he could have copied.
It could be anybody's.
Could be anyone's, yep. And that surprise factor has unlimited potential.
Exactly.
Yep. I'm very much excited about how this fight goes because in a lot of ways I feel like it's set up potentially for Class 1B to win.
I think so.
Because Class 1A is already ahead.
Yes, and then that would bring them to an overall tie.
It would bring them to an overall tie, and it would make it a point of debate as to whether Shinso now definitely deserves to get upgraded to the hero course.
Right.
But it's not necessarily defined as to which course makes the most sense for him to go into because, one, they all have, their number of people in there.
Right. Someone would have to go.
Or just
increase the number.
Or just increase the number. Yeah. And then would that be okay? Or would that, have some problems with it or something?
Yep.
Who knows? But having Shinso brought back into the story in general is just something we're really excited about. And now that we're going to get, more focus on him specifically since it's one of his teams that'll be in this fight. I'm very excited about that because that episode in Season 2, Season 2, Episode 7, one of my favorite episodes of the series. Just fantastic stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah. Y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. So, Jacob.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just a casual thing that I thought, if anything, might have been induced by Shinso's brainwashing. But no, Shinso's brainwashing was need to stop this from going rampant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. It was set up to be a thing of, oh no, what will happen if one for all kind of stuff is forced up to the surface because of brainwashing.
Like hypnotherapy or something.
Right, like hypnotherapy. But instead, no, the quirk went rampant or kind of a bit chaotic because, and this is a loose theory here, they decided to have in this episode All for One get focused on. And it feels like there's this thing of where Deku had that dream, and that's something that Nana Shimura had. So this is something that One for All is also potentially as a amalgamation of people and quirks pushing to the surface. So like I have questions here.
At the very least, he is semi-aware.
Yes.
Because he was like, oh, I feel my brother, right?
Yeah, we can talk about that in a second.
But as far as, the episode itself, discounting we basically had the Uraraka bit.
Yes.
Which is cool. The All for One bit.
All for One bit.
Cool. Yeah. And then the whole thing with Deku. And that's
and then the Monoma little bit
where he's talking with Shinso. Yeah, and that was good because that is a great point to bring up, in that they are kind of similar in that regard, and that could also
have to play the asshole a bit in order to use their quirks.
Yeah, but then there's also the whole idea that that could be some foreshadowing that Shinso will be in Class 1B, and if he is, then great, because that could be a way to give extra emphasis and reasoning for why we spend time with Class 1B, because up till now, Class 1B doesn't really have a serious character focus. It's mostly comedy, right? Yeah. Monoma comes up and does his pose and, does his face, right? And it's great and it's super entertaining. But that's more or less just what it is. If Shinso didn't go into there, then that could be some more chance for dramatic.
I personally would rather he goes into Class 1A.
Me too.
Just personally. And I don't really care if he replaces someone or if he just comes in. I feel like he would fit better in there because of the type of character that he is.
Yes, and personal preference-wise, I totally would want that as well. But if I feel like this could have been a way to set it up so that if they do that, it's all right, it kind of makes sense,
Gotcha. So the fight all coming in with this here, we got a rapid introduction to all of 1B's quirks, which was really cool. I liked the combination of the three outside of Monoma and Shinso, utilizing their ranged attack stuff.
They really got like the perfect team comp as far as quirk interplay. Like
I think that they're still missing the scout thing in a similar way that the one guy with the twin impact quirk, his thing is more based on the idea of being able to then touch all these objects that then are getting telekinetically manipulated.
Right.
But if he didn't have someone with that there, his scouting capacity is actually quite minimal. It's more that he seems to be the trap guy who then can very much have a similar connection to Mineta, in that Mineta basically has a grab instead of a push, you know? I push something once and then I can impact it again. Right,
it's a kind of
stick this and then other things will stick to that.
Right, it's a utility / preparation bad touch.
Yes.
Yeah.
But all the rest of Deku's classmates and stuff utilize their quirks in really clever ways, despite being outclassed in terms of raw damage output.
And they're really not using their quirks in conjunction with each other as much as I would like.
But they have a really tricky team comp.
Yeah, they kind of did get screwed on team comp. So that is what it is.
And no telekinetic, crazy control.
Yes.
But there was a cool thing that Mineta was doing where he was stringing along a part of his suit, it looked like.
Yeah, and
with his balls, and then Uraraka was slinging it around with free control. So
yeah, that was kind of fun.
That was a cool way to have him have verticality, mobility.
Yes. And I gotta say, as far as if you're going to have characters that don't have too much interplay with their quirks and stuff, or rather, if you're going to have people that are in Deku's team when Deku has like this big character focus thing and all this stuff with Shinso and whatnot, I'm very glad that it was with people like Mina and Mineta rather than like say Momo. Right, So because Mina, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, girl, you've got a good quirk, but I have a tough time thinking of how you could use your quirk creatively with other people's quirks, right?
Yeah,
Mineta, a bit more.
I melt everything I touch.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's really tricky to use as a team thing,
and I don't mind if Mineta gets shafted. So
and Mineta's has way more team utility. But I felt like Uraraka here got the lion's share of this in a way that was really cool. Having the idea, though, that heroes and who they are end up creating this air about them, this persona, this thing that draws out the excitement and happiness in people, is interesting, because I really empathize with Uraraka's thing of, well, her parents were overworked and not getting by that easily, and so she felt like, oh, if only I could lighten their load a little bit.
Right.
But it goes all the way back to the emotional load, not just the physical load of work and stuff. And while she is definitely a support character in her quirks function and also in her personality, it was cool seeing her have a position that she had to throw herself into where all she really could do was scream Deku. Like, she can't actually make it easier for him to do this. So it felt like a really cool sacrifice moment where she was like, oh, I don't care. This is why I became a hero, was to make it easier for people like this who are struggling.
Right.
And I'll just throw myself into the fray.
I was really worried she was going to get seriously hurt.
I thought she was going to get hurt too. And I think she did get hurt a little bit, but nothing serious.
It wasn't like she got whipped around and slammed into a building. You know, like it could have been
really bad.
Much worse. And the fact that we were being given the backstory and stuff after she jumped, and grabbed onto Deku and everything.
It heightened the tension.
That heightened the tension, because I'm like, hold on, are you gearing up to like do something really bad?
Right. But thankfully, Deku had the sense of mind to abandon the match entirely, scream at Shinso, get back, run, I don't know what's happening. And there's a lot of times when characters are having these kinds of struggles that they don't just communicate exactly what they're feeling in the moment. But Deku is the kind of character who's just like, I don't know what's going on, man.
Priorities.
Back up, priorities. I don't want to hurt any of you. And I love that Shinso then didn't take advantage of this. He saw the genuine fear in this guy.
He's like, what do I do? Yeah.
Wait, how can I help?
Right.
And given that we've seen in his backstory that he doesn't want to be, in some ways, the character of Monoma. He doesn't want to be the person who intentionally does not like unheroic things, but does things that are, a bit less likable. He wants to have friends. He wants to Yeah.
In a lot of ways, the big difference maybe with Shinso and Monoma is that Shinso, because of his quirk, it's really hard for him to not be pigeonholed into the way that people kind of treat him.
Yeah.
With Monoma, I'm sorry, copying quirks might not be as cool as like some of the other heroes that you think about. But no, you're just being an asshole because you like to be an asshole. Like, and you know what? If that's how you're going to do it, then you own it. But
you don't need to be this way.
You don't need to be this way.
But yeah, keep living your life, man. But Shinso came into this whole match, well, in a lot of ways, saying, I am not here to make friends. I'm here to make my dream a reality. But in the moment where he didn't take advantage here, I think the teachers are going to notice that. I think the teachers are going to notice that because there's some aspect of it of where he might have dropped the ball in terms of the competitive side of things.
Oh, sure.
But given that we have a situation where he worked with the other team here to break Deku out of the situation.
Yep.
And he needed to scream Midoriya's name.
Right. Well, that's a hero thing, and also want to point out that what he did was similar to what Uraraka did in that if Deku for some reason had not responded or something like that, but he suddenly becomes aware of Shinso's location, Shinso does not have a reinforcing type quirk.
Nope. He takes one or two big hits and he's done.
Yep, and the range of those things was ridiculous.
He was unlimited.
So he was kind of in the same situation as Uraraka as far as danger.
Basically.
Maybe not quite as much because she was literally jumping onto Deku.
Yeah, she was piggybacked onto him right there.
Right.
Yeah.
But still, damn.
Yeah.
Like, so, way to go.
I also think that this is a scene that, in a cool way, has more romantic energy than the romantic parts with Uraraka and Deku. Like, this shows them as close. This is the idea that she might not have done this in the exact same frenetic danger, or frenetic panic, if you will, with someone else.
Right, because her plan wasn't even very well thought through. It was just, see if I can talk him down.
Something.
Right, do something. It's very similar to what Deku did with her.
It's very similar to what Deku did with her. Exactly. That's the point.
And it's one of those things where, cause I have not liked Uraraka's stuff in recent seasons.
No.
Because it feels like
capped in some ways in season 2 fighting against Bakugo.
Yeah, because it really feels like she's just been Deku-kun, Deku-kun, Deku-kun.
Yep.
This whole time.
Yep. Very much so.
But I really liked her stuff in the early, 2 seasons, right? Her introduction with Deku, that was great, right? The fact that he ended up going back to save her and that had a big impact on her, right?
Her stuff in the tournament was
Excellent. And this felt like kind of a return to form for that. I don't know necessarily if that will continue too much into the future, because this is a very, short scene,
Very quick, yeah.
But it was good.
Yeah, it felt like in a lot of ways the bit with Todoroki that we got this season, where he kind of has his big dramatic pose and he's got the fire coming off of him. It felt like Uraraka was doing her moment of that, but it's the indirect aspect of the Todoroki one that is more direct here, where it's this guy specifically showed me a way that I can be a hero. Not something where it's just, this is just how heroes do things, but it's literally the leap into danger with no defined chance of being able to go and make it out of this.
Yep.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, because she's not thinking about it.
She's not thinking about
that. It's I'm going to do something.
Look before you leap. Or leap before you look, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And while I definitely want in the future for there to be more situations where Uraraka can actually be more mechanically, literally helpful, this was definitely a step up.
Yeah. Next thing that I feel like just needs to be lightly touched upon is just this whole bit with All for One in the beginning.
Yeah.
Now, my theory brain wants to go and attribute all kinds of weird stuff to it, so I'm going to try and curb myself.
A lot of it could theoretically be possible because it's All for One and he has a billion quirks or whatever.
Right. But the big thing is that he's aware of what's going on in Tartarus in a way that he should not be.
Right. He knew what the guards were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. 2, other thing is that if he's this powerful, why is he still here?
It's a good question.
3, the thing that I think is the obvious reason is that it felt like, based on his line here, that he has been intentionally going back in his memories for reasons.
Okay.
And what I think might be happening here, and this, I'm not going to go in depth into this, but I think what might have been happening is he was potentially making contact into the whatever.
Yeah.
With his brother. The OG, all the way back then. Now, that's not necessarily the case. But if it is, it might make sense then that this is what he's always been thinking of doing. Is that eventually there would be a successor for One For All.
Right.
That would have One For All go so big and so crazy that he would be able to like detect it or sense it or have some kind of mental quirk that would reach out to it, and he would be able to
influence in some way or observe or something. And it makes sense because given the fact that he fought All Might, All Might he already knew about, right? He was hiding from All Might.
Yeah.
But now that All Might's done, well, where's One For All?
Yeah, he knows where it is. He knows it's in Deku.
Oh.
That was the whole thing of season 3 when they were having their confrontation. He's like, you put it in Midoriya, didn't you?
Oh.
He's like, that young boy, it's him, isn't it? I'm going to come... And then that was when All Might was like, okay, I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah.
He knows he knows it's in Deku. And one of the things that's potentially even more terrifying is there's only really been one quirk that we know for a fact that All For One acquired during the show.
God. Yeah.
And it was the one that keeps track of a number of people.
Which is
wait
ridiculous.
Wait a minute. Has he been keeping track of Deku? Like
Holy
all
shit.
this time?
Yeah, he could have been.
I don't remember if there was a range limitation on the quirk, because there might actually have been.
No, I think it was that there was a limitation of only 100 people. 100 people. And we don't know.
We don't know what it keeps track of.
We don't know what it keeps track
and
of.
If it mixes with other quirks, maybe it can keep track of
Sure.
more than just...
But we don't know if the catalog of people that were in it gets transferred as well when the quirk is taken.
Oh, so if he can then have it be like someone that's died, maybe even.
Oh,
that's a dumb theory. But just
I don't know about that one, Chief. But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how useful it would be. More
right.
But there is the whole thing of All For One and his brother. They had an interesting dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And quirk muckery happened.
Yes.
We don't know what necessarily comes about as a result of that. We know that the sort of spirits and stuff of the previous One For All holders reside within Deku.
Right, and that's probably because of the fact that quirks are DNA based. So the DNA of the people passing down through that's why you needed to eat the hair. That's why you need to eat it.
Sure.
So
but it's the fancy, style
it's the fancy part of
where
the
we're
show,
not going to go into necessarily the exact
hard magic.
Hard magic that then can be connected back to our world. Like it's just it's part of the quirk, right?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
But as a result, since we have that, there is a possibility that there could be other muckery along those lines via One or All For One, maybe.
Yeah. So that just needs to be brought up. But Deku has access to previous One For All holders' quirks.
Other quirks.
At least 6 other quirks. This is the part.
He said specifically 6, which I believe is because the original brother didn't have one. He had the power that created
All Might didn't have
One For All. All Might didn't have one, and
Deku
doesn't have one.
So then there'd be 6 left. Yeah, that makes sense. But this is the part that I feel like is a bit in the vague territory here. So one of the things that is interesting about the idea of One For All having the stacking effect, right?
Yeah.
And the idea of the quirk singularity, which feels thematically why this is happening now in the story, and why they're bringing up the idea of the quirk singularity. It's been foreshadowed in a couple really slight, indirect ways. And it's also something that we kind of had to question whether or not it would end up being a thing when season 1 brought it up as it's the amalgamation of a tons of power, but then also what would happen if One For All was passed to someone with a quirk in season 2.
Exactly.
So now that this is happening, is there a possibility that when quirks end up bumping into each other in the same body, and All For One can be an exploration of this as well, could a new quirk form out of the combination of other quirks?
That is a great point.
Yeah, like All For One just casually says it. He's like, this times 3, this times 4, and whatever, and it's just Hulk arm of ridiculousness. Now, that's not a quirk. That's like 12 quirks all doing
just
a bunch
fired
of
off
stuff
at the same time. Yeah,
right. That's essentially an entirely new quirk if you think
from
about
a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. So I'm more like, well, wait a minute. Has Deku already been casually using quirks all along? And it's just that trippy. Everything that made All Might who he was actually like 5 quirks all working together.
It's possible.
Like, for one, the one part that we've always just kind of accepted as, ooh, it's cool kind of anime thing is All Might got swole. Mm-hmm. He would like poof out. Like, is that actually a quirk? Like, is that actually in and of itself a like like a Hulk out like quirk? Is the aspect that All Might would be able to have like he was so strong he would just blast the in a certain direction and it would send him flying or jumping in certain ways or what have you, like
Yeah, it is. It gets trippy because
it feels like we're about to disassemble One For All into its components.
I feel like if this was like an RPG where it's like, okay, like if you're familiar with Mutants and Masterminds, it's the point by point, for everything. You might have super speed, but that could also give you some elemental control because you control the wind, because you make a tornado, because you run around really fast or something like that, right? Little things like that from an outsider perspective, right? Not actually going into the details, for all intensive purposes, theoretically, it could be like a new quirk almost. Right? Because, Deku flicking and shooting out these blasts of compressed air, that's all a permutation of his strength and everything. Right? Yeah. But that's still a very different thing that he can do. And if you take that...
Technique versus quirk,
Right, and if that's something that's being done with a single quirk...
What could happen if you had 6 or 7?
6 or 7, all in the same person, and they've all been getting juiced up over the years.
Right.
But it could get crazy. And one of the reasons that I am a little bit apprehensive about this, but also at the same time very excited, is that, one, it could make for fights that are a lot more dynamic. In that... Because like... In MHA, right, All Might's fights are dramatically wonderful, and Deku's fights too, dramatically wonderful, but as far as the technical aspects of how the fights play out, they're very straightforward. It's
for the most part.
It's big punch versus something or whatever,
something else.
And eventually you punch harder, right? And
your punches land.
Right, exactly. And that's been incredibly interesting, right? Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But with all these different quirks, that's just even more ways that it could theoretically go. More tools to be used, right?
Yeah. And in general, it leads to more Deku introspective focus. And I think that the show needs to go back to that a little bit more. Having a lot of the story focused around other characters is natural. It's needed for an ensemble cast story like this. But Deku is the main character, and his original thing of I'm going to become the greatest hero.
That's why we bought into the show.
Well, that's what the show told us was going to be the end
the main
goal.
Point. Yeah.
Right now, we are kind of 50-50 on jumping through things that don't seem to build that. So if that's what we're going to do, that's okay. But having this be brought up as the meta thing of we're going to refocus back on the main character's progression from his power standpoint so that we can get more at him as a character. But I will say, this is something that makes him have a very obvious one-for-all connection here. Like, it's not even
for like everyone else.
Yeah, but think about it.
Yeah.
All For One made his big debut, and like just tons of quirks. No, I'm talking about when he blew up Kamino.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone saw that, and it was an All Might versus Dark God kind of moment there.
Yeah.
The world will start to clue in rather quickly if this kid starts to manifest multiple quirks at the same time.
Where have we seen that before? Only really once, ever, other than Monoma, really. But it'd be easy to tell it it's not something like that.
But I think, legitimately, that will make people a little bit scared of Deku.
Sure.
Actually a little bit like, wait a minute, hold on.
To be fair.
This won't necessarily remind them of actually All Might. It might remind them of All For One.
We did get in this episode from a certain point of view was a Monster Within episode, which I never expected to see from MHA. let me tell you.
Yeah, me neither.
But I like how they took it, and that it probably won't be too much of the monster within moving forward. More of just, getting to understand yourself and whatnot, and that's all good stuff.
And that means lore.
That means lore and all of that, and really good conversations. But from the perspective of everyone else that doesn't know the full situation, they might not see it that way. And that could be an additional way for Deku and Shinso to become close. Because Shinso's quirk is one that has been shown time and time again to have the potential for causing harm and stuff to the people around him. As a result of that...
cause harm?
Well, yeah, because it's not physical harm necessarily. It totally could.
Oh, it just makes people want to avoid talking to him.
Right, exactly.
Emotional harm. Gotcha,
yeah. Because he's got a potentially scary quirk, right? Deku's quirk has just been demonstrated to also be quite scary.
Sure.
Right? To the point that he was, they were going to call the match, and Deku was saying, "Stay away from me, right? I might hurt you."
Yeah. Which is a thing that
could segue into some fun conversations with him and Shinso afterwards.
And then maybe it's a thing of where Deku just has to reveal to people
sure,
this is something that's coming from One for All.
Yeah. Uraraka just sort of asks, "Hey, Deku-kun, I'm glad you're okay, and I'm fine.
Could you please tell us what happened
But
here?"
what was that? Yeah.
I am very excited for the aftermath of this fight, because I think it's going to shake up the class dynamic in a way that will be very, very dramatic.
Oh, yeah. I could totally see something where all of the class is sort of not sure what to say about it, and then all of a sudden Mineta just blurts out "What the hell, Midoriya? What was that?" Right?
Yeah, and for all we know, immediately after this, in the next episode, another quirk's gonna pop out.
Yeah, he's got 6 of them in there.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. 6 people's quirks. That's what the guy said.
Yep.
And I like that he spoke directly to Deku as hey, you're manifesting me because it's my quirk that you're using.
Right.
But if you manifested someone else's quirk, it would probably bring them up in your mind's eye.
Right.
So are we going to get the Council of One for All? And then it's the thing of where it's
man.
Comedy-wise, I want the Kaguya bit.
Well, okay, yes, Kaguya.
It's all the holders debating in his head as he's taking notes furiously. I want Kaguya, that so much.
The Kaguya is a much better example of that, but the other one that it made me think of is if you've seen the free abridged series, where the one character has the Council of Horrors, or whatever, with political intrigue and backstabbing and stuff. There's so much wonderful comedy and just antics that can be gotten up to when you have a bunch of people in one space like that. Especially when they're actually different people.
Right.
I'm
not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me.
Yeah, it doesn't just have to be, Dummy Kaguya and Ice Queen Kaguya or something like that, right? It can get all kinds of crazy.
I just want that moment where Deku takes a notebook and his hammer of order, and he just order in the court, and they're just Deku thinks he's got a good plan again. Okay, is he actually going to listen to your plan, so-and-so? He's well, if he did, you shut up.
Right.
I've been taking great notes from everything that you've been saying recently.
I have an image in my head of exactly what I want from this. And if it doesn't end up being this, totally fine. Totally fine. But that being said, if any of you have seen a movie Stardust, there is in that movie my favorite peanut gallery that I've seen in fiction of just a bunch of ghosts that are following the story around, and they're all brothers. So
the problem is they can't interact with the real world.
Right. They can't actually interact with the real world. And in this situation, they still kind of can't, because they're working through Deku, as a proxy,
vessel,
right?
Yeah.
But I can imagine that they might get sick of each other, over time, right? Over the years and decades spent together. So
right, and it's just the question of can Deku eventually manifest
all of them at once and have that Council of Elrond or whatever, kind of conversation.
Also, it's a fun way to have the typical anime time dilation of I'm thinking a lot in the middle of this fight.
Yes.
Pacing-wise, I have to actually freeze time in order to show all the thought process, because that takes a lot of time.
Because when Deku was floating down with Uraraka, one of the things that I was wondering, one was just, is the match canceled? But 2, did time just run out because of all, everyone was hunkering down and the 20 minutes or whatever is still ticking.
We don't know how
and
much
then all of
time
a sudden
was in
it's like,
Deku's head.
the game ends, the match ends, and no one's been captured because it's been emergency mode or something.
Everyone else was captured in the time that you were in your head, Deku.
Right, and then because, and then...
You wake up and they're all captured.
Right, and it's like, you guys lost, right? Ran out of time and...
But no, we're still in the first half of the fight.
Yep.
And
Monoma comes back in like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
We have to win, or tie at least.
Yeah, and I think that Class 1B could end up winning here now.
I think so. The fact that Class 1A got back together is good.
Yes.
Because Deku being separate for a long time, I would have been surprised at all if Class 1A got destroyed while Deku was somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think the whole story here has heard my cry that I wanted the team-on-team fight.
Yes.
And it just devolved into an all-out brawl. And they even said it. It's like, it's just a brawl now. I'm like, yes!
And it's so chaotic, you almost can't even really tell what's happening, right? Quirks are being used, and if you went by in slow motion, you'd be like, yes, Mina did this, Mineta did this, that person did that. And,
Deku blocked that bit of Shinso's Aizawa little scarf thing going towards Uraraka. I want that. I want that! Yeah. But, y'all, good episode. Great setup for some future storyline stuff. So, thank you all so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the full-length timer version of this reaction and discussion, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. Any level of support there gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with us and the community there about MHA as a show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if anything that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.